Good evening. Tonight I'm going to discuss something I picked up. I actually have had a couple of these over the years, but I didn't have one. And I picked up the Dunlop Crybaby wah pedal. I don't know if you can see it there. Crybaby. And it's the basic one that's $79. And this is a review of the pedal. And also, there's not much to the pedal. It works really well, but there's not much to it. But I will review it a little bit. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about the wah pedal. I grew up hearing a lot of wah. It's kind of a dated sound. And I have some comments on the wah pedal and my thoughts on using it. And the kinds of uses it has. And the pros and cons of using it much. So I hope you enjoy this discussion. This review of the Dunlop Crybaby wah pedal, discussion of the wah. And I'll intersperse some clips of me playing with the wah pedal that I did. I had a lot of fun with it. If you are searching for a wah pedal, you can go on Guitar Center, Sweetwater, Amazon, any of those places. You'll see about 50 different wah pedals. But this one is the main traditional wah. It's the Crybaby original wah. I think they've upgraded it a little bit. It comes in a nice box. I don't think it's really that expensive. It's $79. And I've already taken it out. You get a sticker with it. I already put that on my guitar case, so I don't think I'll show you right now. But you get a sticker with it, a manual, but really there's not much to it. You plug the guitar in here. You plug the cord going to the amp here. I usually run it to a fuzz. I've got a fuzz. But it actually sounded pretty good just going straight into my amp. I've got a tube amp and, turned up the gain a little bit and it sounded good. But if you have a fuzz pedal, that'll with maybe a little bit of delay and reverb, that'll really give you that old 60s sound. So there's not much to it. You can see there. Things built really like a tank. Like I said, I don't consider $79 all that much for this pedal. The other thing I wanted to say is that Dunlop itself has a ton of pedals, and there are a lot of other ones that have built-in fuzz, that have built-in delay, and all these different presets. And I've kind of shied away from those over the years. I do like fuzz with it. Now I have a fuzz pedal. But, already you're going to be using your foot. So I don't like anything that involves, kind of getting settings when you're playing, especially if you're playing live. So I like the simplicity of this one. I actually prefer it to some of the other ones I looked at. If you stick it up before a fuzz, it's going to sound great. And you have, the less that can go wrong. The more things it does, the more it might sound bad because you don't have it set right, and you have to sit there and learn how to set it correctly. So I'm a big believer in a nice simple pedal, and this one is nice. It's built like a tank, and like I said, I actually prefer it to a lot of the other fuzz pedals out there. What I want to say about this new one is that it does have a nice battery compartment. I think the old ones. See that nice battery compartment? Now, I use a 9-volt adapter. It's down here. It fell out. But I've got a 9-volt adapter. But it does have a battery compartment. And the old ones were kind of like electro-harmonics pedals. You had to get out a screwdriver to change the battery. And I don't know about... I've got an old Big Muff pedal that I love. I think it's one of the best fuzzes ever made. But man, every time the battery goes out, you've got to get a Phillips screwdriver to change the battery. And, that's such a pain in the neck. And plus, I don't know about you, but the screws strip out. And it's just a big pain. So having a nice modern but sturdy battery compartment, it's not all, flimsy, but it's a modern battery compartment. That was a good change. I don't think there's much... else that's different about it. It's pretty much the same thing you would have gotten back in 1967, back when Cream and Hendrix and we're using them in all those great funk bands. So pretty nice pedal. And like I said, I recommend this one over all the other ones, actually. And it's only 79 bucks. I don't think that's that much money for a good pedal like this. The wah-wah pedal is basically a tone control that you use with your foot. So you've got a tone control on your guitar. You've probably got a tone control on your amp. The wah-wah pedal is a tone control for your foot. And of course, your foot can just sweep through all those modulations with the tone, just boom, boom, boom. And so if you tap your foot in time, you really can get a pretty extreme tonal range. But it's basically just a tone control. From what I understand, I'm not an electrician. So some people, it's not a tremolo or a vibrato. I guess you could confuse it with those things, but it's a tone control. I guess if you could move your pinky really fast and use your tone control on your electric guitar, you might be able to affect the wah pedal. But I think the wah has a greater range of tone variations, and also there's no way that you could, with your hands while you're playing, you could sweep through the tone. You just move your foot down, and you just take that tone all the way through from the trebliest to the no treble, just like as soon as you could tap your foot. So it's a pretty powerful effect. It's a pretty distinct effect. I guess the main use of the wah is psychedelic rock. That's whenever I think when most people think of the wah-wah pedal, they think of Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix, maybe some of those old funk bands like the psychedelic soul, like Papa was a Rolling Stone by the Temptations, that kind of psychedelic soul from the late 60s and early 70s. And it's definitely great for that. When I got it out, and I almost felt like I needed a Halloween costume. I was playing it, and it comes back pretty quickly, but it's definitely a dated sound. It just takes you right back to the early 70s, and you don't hear it that much anymore. And the kind of music that uses the wah, I think it was for those big, long, kind of whoa solos, that like Cream or Hendrix used to do. And I think it was tailor made to those big, long, extended solos that were kind of freeform. And I think even by the mid-70s, when music got more professional, probably, maybe there's a lesson there somewhere, but music got more professional, and I think the wah had kind of fallen out of favor. You don't really hear it too much, even in mid-70s stuff. Although Clapton would use the wah, like on some of his live albums in the late 70s, I think Blues Power and some other ones, he used the wah. So, I mean, it's not like you never hear it, but those big, long wah-wah pedal solos, which were often in power trios, so you really didn't have another guitar. That's a pretty dated effect. Like I said, when I got my wah out, I hadn't played one in a lot of years. I played it today. I've got some clips here. I almost felt like I needed a Halloween costume, it was like almost a joke, like here I was, like dressing up like a hippie or something for the Halloween party, because the sound is so associated with that. It's hard to kind of disassociate yourself with all the baggage of the wah-wah pedal. But it is a pretty cool sound. I think I like it, and I'm sure others do. It's probably an acquired taste. I used to play, and I'd never had much use for one when I was playing quite a bit. But it is maybe a song or two, but then you have to bring it to the gig, and it's kind of, you have to usually have more chords. So a lot of times I just got, so I would never use it. But I do like to use it kind of when I play that kind of music. And quite frankly, there aren't a whole lot of reasons when you play out, you're not going to go to a lot of places and play Cream or Hendrix. Maybe in some bars, might kind of tend to be kind of dusty bars actually, but most of the places you play aren't going to really want to hear you play Voodoo Child for 20 minutes, while people are eating their dinner or something. So I didn't have much use for it, but I do like it, so I hooked it up. But one other use for the wah that I wanted to mention, they also use them in soul. Of course, you hear it on like Papa Was a Rolling Stone, a lot of that psychedelic soul of the early 70s, late 60s, Temptations, like Curtis Mayfield, he used it great. But you also hear it, it's actually very sweet for chording, but you've got to really be careful. When I play, you really don't want to play too much, but you can use it for chording, and it gives you a really kind of sweet atmospheric sound. And you hear that on a lot of those old soul records, like the Chi-Lites or the Spinners or the OJs. Some of their nice stuff would have a wah-wah pedal. Now, they actually modified the wah-wah pedal so it was just kind of set at that sweet spot, and it wasn't really dependent on your foot. And you could buy a pedal that's just the wah-wah effect minus the foot acrobatics, and I think that's called an envelope filter. And you heard a lot of that on those old records, like by the Chi-Lites, the Spinners, and it's really beautiful. You know where else you hear a wah? I just wanted to mention one song, out of the many, but one song where you hear a wah-wah pedal used in a very tasteful, kind of adult way that's not sort of a parody almost these days, is Barbra Streisand, The Way We Were. I know that's kind of a random song, but if you listen to Barbra Streisand, The Way We Were, that's an adult contemporary, such a beautiful ballad. I think Marvin Hamlish wrote that. But you'll hear a wah-wah pedal, and it's kind of that old ensemble playing that was so nice, very professional playing, not flashy, not that big solos or anything, but you'll hear a wah on the rhythm guitar in that, and it's a very pretty wah-wah pedal. It might be an envelope filter, but it's basically that wah-wah effect, and it gives it that kind of atmospheric guitar sound, which is so nice. So I do like the wah. I do, like I said, I feel a little bit juvenile. I remember one time I was playing in a blues band, and we were doing a sound check, and I had brought it was the last time I had a wah-wah pedal, and I brought the wah-wah pedal, and I kind of set it up. I wasn't planning on using it that much, but before the sound check, I was kind of messing around with it, and I was playing some old Cream or something, and I had that wah-wah pedal going, and one of the guys came over, and I don't think he and I ever saw eye to eye on a number of things, but he came over, and he was kind of kidding, but also almost kind of made me. It almost kind of made him mad. He said, "You sound like you're 13," And I guess it does kind of, for some reason, I don't know. It's the wah-wah pedal is sort of a parody. You sound like Wayne's World or Bill and Ted. Oh, listen to the wah-wah, and it's I don't know. There's a certain immature vibe I get when I play it. I was almost embarrassed to post some of these clips, but you can get there's a certain sound you get with the wah-wah pedal, and it's a classic rock sound. The wah-wah pedal has a very significant place in the history of the electric guitar and in rock and roll music. It's appeared in other things, but in the history of rock and roll guitar and electric guitar and rock music, the wah-wah pedal is a venerable contribution, and it's behind a lot of the most famous songs. And even even though times change and it moved on, it's still a great sound. So I got my wah out, and I was playing some old Blind Faith and everything, and I had a good time. And I'm gonna leave you with this this kind of version of the old Blind Faith song, "Presence of the Lord," that was pretty cool. That was an Eric Clapton song. that he did on Blind Faith. Steve Winwood sang it back then, and it's kind of a reflective song, but there's a midsection in it where it kind of breaks off and into hard rock, and he does the classic wah-wah pedal solo. So I thought I'd kind of jam out a little bit to Presence of the Lord, Blind Faith and the Search for God, Blind Faith style, 1969, Presence of the Lord. But it's one of the several examples from that period of a classic wah-wah pedal sound. So I hope you enjoy it. And I recommend the Dunlop Crybaby pedal. They have a bunch of them. I'm sure they're all good, but I like the simplicity of the Dunlop. And I don't, I've got a pedal board. I've got a good amp. The Dunlop I had sounded pretty good just into the amp. I just went right into the amp with some of the gain set up on the amp. It sounded I think that's actually kind of close to how Clapton and those guys played, because they didn't have a lot of effects back then. I do think there were some fuzz pedals around by the time you got to like Hendrix. But Clapton, he might have just used the wah-wah pedal straight into a Marshall amp. I'd have to read up on his rig. But he's never been all that much for pedals anyway. So I think sometimes you might have just heard a wah-wah pedal played into an amp. Of course, it was a rock and roll amp cranked to 11, but I don't think they had a lot of gunk on it otherwise. One other final thing, just in terms of rock and roll amps, when you're playing, you might not need a reverb and a delay pedal when you're playing in, Madison Square Garden, because the room's so big, you get automatic reverb and delay, if you think about it. So we always say Clapton had kind of a clean tone, but when you're playing in a room that big and that loud, you get natural reverb and delay, kind of echo. And the amp, when you're that loud, cranks out at a distorted level. So in some ways, the pedals we have are trying to emulate the sound of playing, through a big Marshall stack at 11 in a huge room, and not all of us are in that situation. So, but I think Clapton just might have played. I don't know if he had a fuzz pedal much. I think Hendrix did, the fuzz face, and I think he used some big muffs too towards the very end of his career before his untimely death. But I think Clapton just played a wah straight into an amp. I'd have to check on that, or maybe he somewhere on the internet he talks about it. But he was never much for a lot of pedals, so it sounds pretty good right into an amp if you've got a good amp that kind of gets some harmonic distortion just naturally. So, but I recommend the Dunlop Crybaby Fuzz, and it might not be something that you want to play all the time, but it's fun to mess around with. I like it. I recommend it. God bless you.